Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. In the previous video on the topic of motion, we discussed about distance, displacement, speed, velocity and acceleration. So in this video, let us represent these physical quantities in a graphical method. The nature of the motion of the bodies can be easily understood by its graphical representation. So what are the graphs that we come across in this video? There are two graphs, distance time graph and velocity time graph. In these graphs, the time taken is plotted along the x-axis of the graph and the distance and velocity is plotted along the y-axis of the graph. So what are the uses of these graphs? From distance time graph, one can easily determine the position of the body during any instant of time. Through velocity time graphs, we can see the velocity of a body at any instant of time. Distance covered by a body can be easily determined by studying the distance time graph. The velocity time graphs tell us the nature of the motion, whether it is uniform or not. Now let us see the different cases in the distance time graphs. Friends, this is a distance time graph. The distance is plotted along the y-axis of the graph and the time is plotted along the x-axis of the graph. So now let us draw distance time graphs for a stationary body, a body moving with uniform velocity and a body moving with variable velocity. Okay friends? Friends, first let us draw the distance time graph for a stationary body. The position of a stationary body does not change with time. So, distance time graph for a stationary body is a straight line parallel to the time axis as shown in this graph. This is the graph for a body in rest. Next comes the distance time graph for uniform velocity. For a body moving with uniform velocity, the distance travelled is proportional to the time taken. So, distance time graph is a straight line inclined to the time axis. Let us see the distance time graph for variable velocity. When a body moves with variable velocity, it covers unequal distances in equal intervals of time, as we all know. So, the distance time graph is not a straight line, but it is a curve, as shown in this graph. Now let us see the different cases in the velocity time graphs. In the velocity time graph, the velocity is plotted along the y-axis of the graph and the time is plotted along the x-axis of the graph. So now let us draw velocity time graphs for a body having uniform velocity, for a body which has uniform acceleration and uniform retardation, a body moving in variable acceleration and variable retardation. Okay friends? First, let us draw the velocity time graphs for uniform velocity. For a body moving with constant velocity, the velocity time graph is a straight line parallel to the time axis, as shown in this figure. Next comes the velocity time graphs for uniform acceleration and uniform retardation. For a body moving in uniform acceleration or retardation, the increase or decrease in velocity is proportional to the time taken. So, velocity time graph is a straight line inclined to the time axis, as shown in this figure. This is the case in uniform acceleration and this is the case in uniform retardation. Velocity time graphs for variable acceleration and retardation. For a body having variable acceleration or retardation, the velocity increases or decreases by unequal amounts in equal intervals of time. So, velocity time graph is a curve as shown in this figure. This is the case in variable acceleration and this is the case in variable retardation. Friends, now let us compare these two graphs. This is the distance time graph, this is the velocity time graph. Let us say the xt curve is parallel to the x-axis and the vt curve is parallel to the x-axis. Here it shows that the body is in rest. Here it shows that the body is in uniform motion. Let us say the xt curve is inclined straightly and the vt curve is also inclined straightly. Here it shows that the body is moving in uniform velocity. Here it shows that the body is moving in uniform acceleration. Let us say the xt curve is a curved line and the vt curve is also a curved line. This graph indicates that the body is in variable velocity. This graph indicates that the body is in variable acceleration. This is the comparison between these two graphs, friends. Friends, let me give you some more graphs. Are these three graphs possible? Let us observe them one by one. Here in the distance time graph, you can see that the distance is decreasing. Can the distance decrease? No. The distance can either increase or it can be constant. Okay, friends. So this graph is not possible. Let us move on to the next two graphs. Here you can see that the time is constant. Can the time be constant? No. The time keeps increasing. Hence, these three graphs are not possible. The angle made by the curve with the horizontal axis is known as the slope of the curve. Friends, in the distance time graph, the slope of the curve indicates the velocity of the body. And in the velocity time graph, the slope of the curve indicates the acceleration of the body. The area under the curve in the velocity time graph indicates the displacement covered by the body. Let us understand the slopes of the curve of different graphs. So now let us see how the slope of the distance time graph gives the velocity of the body. So friends, here's a distance time graph of a body moving in uniform velocity. You can tell this by observing the graph. Now let us take 2 points on the xt curve A and B, which means 2 points of the motion time period. Clearly it covers distance s1 and s2 at times t1 and t2 respectively, as you can see here. The slope of the line AB is equals to tan theta, which means BC divided by AC. The opposite side divided by the adjacent side, BC divided by AC, which is S2 minus S1 divided by T2 minus T1, which is equal to displacement divided by time, which is the velocity of the body between the 2 points. Hence, the slope of the distance time graph gives the velocity of the body. I hope you understood how the slope of the distance time graph gives the velocity of the body. Okay friends, let us move on to the velocity time graph. Friends, now let us see how the slope of the velocity time graph gives us the acceleration of the body. Here friends, in this graph, you can see that the body is moving in uniform acceleration. It is a straight line inclined to the time axis. Here, let us take 2 points A and B. If we draw the dotted lines for this graph also, we will get the points V1 and V2, T1 and T2 respectively. Friends, in this case, we are going to say U, which means the initial velocity is V1, and V, the final velocity is V2. Okay friends? So, the slope of the line AB is equals to tan theta, which means the opposite side divided by the adjacent side. In this case, BC divided by AC. We know that BC is the velocity of the body between those 2 points, and AC is the time taken between those 2 points. Therefore, here we get change in velocity divided by time taken, which is the acceleration of the body. Hence, we can say that the slope of the velocity time graph gives the acceleration of the body. So friends, this is about the slopes of the two graphs. Let us take the same graph. Here, the area under the slope, which is this triangle and the rectangle below it. The area under the slope gives us the displacement of the body in the velocity time graph. Okay friends? Friends, this is all about the graphical representation of motion. I hope you understood all the concepts of this video very clearly. So don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.